Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TSMU Q&A series. I am your host, Mark Hubbard. I'm a product manager at Lenovo by day and occasionally by night. I'm the host of the TSMU Q&A series. Today, I'm excited to be joined by an extremely special guest, TSM Dunk, also known as Duncan Cox. Dunk, what's up, man?
Yo, what's up, my dude? I'm so
Uh,
excited, but nervous at the same time.
Yeah, so excited to be doing this. So for everyone who know, Dunk and I have the privilege of being friends outside of this. So I'm super excited to get to spend
Yes,
the
sir.
next chunk of time hanging out with all of you and him. So for this Q&A, everyone, we will be pulling questions from the TSMU Discord. So if you have a question for Dunk, head on over to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your question in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. Allie did everything she could to make it as straightforward as possible. So once you've asked your question, join the waiting room voice channel and wait to jump on up and spend some time hanging out with me and Dunk on the show and fire away some of your questions to Dunk. So Dunk, while people get their questions rolling and put it in the Discord, why don't you go ahead and give us a little brief intro?
Hey, everybody. I'm Dunk. If you couldn't tell, I'm British. I live in the United Kingdom. And my current role at TSM is officially senior social media manager. But technically, it's like a head of social role. I look after a team based in North America, and I have people in Brazil, soon to have people in India, and other countries across the globe. But yeah, that's me. Hey, what's up? I'm Dunk.
So for those of you who don't know, he did say he's in the UK. So my guy is making an extremely special trip, staying up nice and late to give all the valuable career resources you guys need and find a lot of value out of this TSMU. Uh, so Dunk, I think with that intro, we can go ahead and start getting ready to jump on into our questions if you're ready for it.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
All right, perfect. So we're gonna kick it off with Remy's question. So Remy asks, what made you decide to go into esports in general? And why did you choose specifically to go for social media and esports instead of other esports related areas?
Okay, great question. Actually, um, so basically, like during university and like growing up, didn't really. I felt like I didn't really have like a passion or like a calling or like I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. So I just studied business management at university because it's very broad. You learn marketing, you learn finance, you learn HR, you kind of learn pretty much everything. And then coming out of university, I was like, right, I kind of actually need to figure out what I like to do in life. I was like, I have two passions. I have sport and I have video games. With like sport, I'm massively into football or soccer, as you guys call it. And I was like, right, okay, so I have these two big interests and passions. I was like, I'm gonna try and pursue either of those industries. Um, Typically, it's like a lot easier to get a job in sports because there's a lot more traditional roles. And back in 2014, when I left university, there wasn't really, esports was getting massive, obviously, but the roles within esports weren't kind of like transferable compared to like a traditional industry. So I was like, okay, I may as well like start pursuing my time after sports. So I made a Twitter account just dedicated to talking about football, just tweeting about Manchester United and everything that was going on. And kind of when I was doing that, I was like, I started to build up a following. I kind of got to like 6,000 followers, which was, yeah, it is what it is. And I was like, okay, damn, I really like social media. And at the time, my friend was making a Twitter account dedicated to talking about news about Manchester United called United Report. And I was kind of like, I really liked that. And I was like, this is such a cool thing to do. And as like time was going on, I was falling more and more in love, and all my time was going into esports. And I just kind of decided that I was like, I love social media. I was like, I love esports. I was like, I think this, if I want to go into any industry now, it's like all my efforts, and like I'm going wholeheartedly to try and break into the esports industry. And then like secondary was like video games. From an early stage, like looking at esports, I spotted community managers as pretty much one of the main roles that I wanted to do because like I'm charismatic. Like I like talking to people all the time. I like engaging with people. Like TSM fans that have worked with me over the last 2 years now know I like to talk to them a lot, and have a lot of fun with them and stuff. So I was like, yeah, community manager's wicked. That's someone who's constantly engaging with fans day in, day out. And yeah, I obviously tried to work my way into the esports industry. And yeah, created obviously TSM Report, the Twitter account. So in all honesty, the first part of your question was like, what made me decide to go into esports? I just have a passion for it. It's something that I can talk about all day, all night, for hours on end and never get bored. And then social media, it kind of just suited a lot of my traits. And I saw a lot of like transferable skills, which I had built up during university. And then through some of like my other jobs coming out of uni, that I could like transition into social media. It's kind of weird because I have like a historic background of sales and like negotiation. So like transitioning into social media from that was, yeah, a little bit of a challenge to say the least.
So yeah, a lot of the traits you were kind of naming off there about yourself that
Yeah.
spoke to social, it overlaps with sales for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
100% overlaps a little bit with sales. Just to add just a little bit more to, I guess Remy's question then. So did the process for you when you started getting engaged with social media, was that all while you were in university and you kind of discovered that while you were in university and then you finished with it, or like what was the story from there?
What do you mean? But sorry, can you repeat that? Do you mean social
Yeah,
media? Did it
yeah,
start
social
at
media.
university?
Yeah, so
Um,
when you were at university, is that where it all kicked off?
no, I mean I've been on every social media platform since the start. Like I don't know if Bebo was worldwide, but it was in the UK. Like Bebo, MySpace, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, like every single social media platform I've been on and I'm on. So I've kind of just like grown up with it. And then it was when I came out of university when I made that Twitter account to talk about football, and then I made a Twitter account in 2018 to talk about esports. Um, that's kind of like when I started. I wouldn't say I was working it because like I was doing it for free and I saw it as a passion project, but when I saw what other people around me were doing with social media, it went from me just tweeting about picking up broccoli at the supermarket and what I'm having for dinner to being like, right, let's create conversation and let's talk to people and not just brain fart onto the timeline. Um,
Uh, Love
and I
that.
just kind of learned that like as the years went on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's creating a conversation, not just throwing stuff up. Perfect. Well, I
Yeah.
think Remy, hopefully that gave some good insight. I really appreciate the question. I think next we actually have someone who's going to be joining us on voice, Panda Turtle, I believe. So Panda Turtle, I think Ali just kicked you on in. How's it going?
Hello, I'm doing good. Are you doing good?
Yeah, can't complain. You got a
Yeah.
question you want to fire it away at Dunk?
Yeah,
Hey,
I
Panda.
was curious about when you joined TSM, if like your expectations of what your role would be, or like what you thought they would be, or if there was a lot of like new stuff that you didn't think you'd have to do.
Great question. So were my expectations different from what I actually ended up doing in my job?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't even begin to explain how drastically different my expectations were of not only working in social media but working for TSM, of like all of the organizations. We'll get. I'll probably touch more on my backstory and how I got to where I am, um, in more depth, but I have no prior experience in social media, like job experience. So I've never worked it outside of me just like I talked about, just having some like fan pages and stuff. So like what
Mm-hmm.
my expectations of social media were just kind of I don't know. I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what like a day to day, apart from like when I knew that I was going to be heading in this direction. I obviously did more research and watched YouTube videos and stuff that people talk about it, but I had no expectations. I thought I wake up, throw a tweet out on the timeline, talk to some fans, put a highlight clip up, just and that's it. It's like watch a lot of esports, cover a lot of esports.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like thought that's what my expectation was, but it's so different. Everything is different in social media, from looking from the inside out. it's all strategy based. Everything that you do on every single platform, every reply, every tweet, picture, meme, highlight, everything has a reason. And I didn't realize that before. So,
That's
you know,
cool.
like I said, when I thought that I just rolled out of bed and tweet what I want to tweet, that's not the case. So you'll see brands and you'll see esports organizations, and everything that they put up will always have a specific reason behind it why they've done that. And that's something that I never expected would be the case.
Mhm.
And then obviously for TSM, everything's just elevated, because you have so many eyes on you at all times, and people are always there, ready and waiting to jump on any mistakes. And that's probably for every single organization. So yeah, I had no expectations going into social media, and my mind was blown. And it still is. Every single day I'm learning.
That's
I hope that
cool.
answers your question.
Yeah, it did. That's cool. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Panda, that was a good one. Coming right out the gate. That was a great one.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. So Dunk, real quick, we've got another one getting ready to get queued up. One other thing I want to ask about that. So what with Panda's question, I think one thing that as an outsider, right, like or a brand who works with you, I think a lot of the stuff my brand does, you have to plan around. Is there anything that surprised you about how much brands weigh into the strategy you're developing? Was that an expectation you had going in, or was that like a whole new side of it you weren't expecting?
Yeah, that was probably one of the things that I was really quickly exposed to, and thrown very into the deep end. I just one day joined a call to talk to the partnerships team, and then I learned everything in that one call, and how we operate and work with partners. Because I come from a very, very traditional background in my previous jobs. Before this one, now I was head of sales for a fizzy drinks company, and I just sold drinks to national companies. Like my UK gang will know Nando's, but I mean, you guys know Nando's in the USA actually. So like, you know, I was selling fizzy drinks. So my kind of like the people that I work for are my employers. Whereas moving into an industry where you have partners and you know, they sponsor you and they work with you and they're a stream of revenue, and you almost have like your boss and your employers, and then you have your partners, and everything that you do, you have to make sure is not only going to satisfy your employers and your boss, but it also needs to satisfy the partner that you're working with. And then when it comes to strategy, like, you guys want to work with us to grow, and vice versa. So like when it comes to strategy and the post that we're doing, like, it's not only in my best interest to want to grow TSM, like I want to grow Lenovo, I want to grow Logitech, and I want to get our fans not only excited about us and our players, and our content creators, but I want them to get excited about the products that we work with too. So when it comes to like building a strategy, and having to incorporate lots of outside stakeholders as well as internal stakeholders, yeah, it was a challenge for sure, and one that I genuinely would never have been able to do if we didn't have the GOAT partnerships team that we did at TSM. Genuinely.
Well, that's I'm glad you touched on that. That symbiotic relationship for brands and TSM is a really big part, and the social media presence is obviously a big contributor for that. But next up, we actually have Carlos slash Pokey coming in for a voice question. Sorry, Carlos, not sure which one you'd prefer, but fire away for Dunk here.
All right, Carlos is just mine.
Perfect.
And what do you think are some important qualities a community manager should have?
Okay, cool. I actually thought about this question beforehand, and I actually think that a lot of probably every single social media role, they all need the same qualities. So this answer probably applies to a lot of social media managers, as well as community managers and social media executives. So many titles. First and foremost, time management. It was actually one of my weakest skills coming into this, and one that I identified really early, that I had to work on very, very quick, because a lot of failures come from time management and organization. You have to be planning weeks ahead always. It's not on the day stuff. So you don't just wake up and think about the stuff that you're going to put out that day. You've probably already planned that weeks ahead. So time management is, for me, be or end all of working in social media. And then organization. Everyone works in different ways. I now work on lists. I never worked on lists before. I use a tool called Asana, which allows me to like stay on top of everything. But when you work for an organization like TSM that has, it's like 75 professionals and content creators, which you have to talk about all the time, it's so incredibly important to stay organized. You know, I have to keep up to date with tournaments that they're playing in, charity events that they're getting involved in, stream, like Imperial Howl recently did a Hot House event for like a stream milestone. I need to stay on top of other stuff that I need to stay on top of. I can't even think about it now. And it's just, yeah, organization and time management are like the 1-2 for me. And I genuinely think that if you don't have those skills, it's something you should definitely be working towards. Another one is the ability to work by yourself. Although you work in a team, and lots of people and lots of organizations have massive social teams, like G2s, for instance, you still have to have the ability to work by yourself and think on your own feet. A lot of ideas come off from you seeing something, getting inspiration from something, and working it by yourself. And especially with the day and age that we're going to probably move into now, where there's a lot of remote working, I feel like getting into esports, lots of teams only have one-man teams. So if you have that ability to be able to work by yourself, not rely on other people to carry you through and to keep you organized, yeah, that's another one. And then probably hard-skinned. I'm a very emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I think from anyone that's ever seen me talk personally on social media can sense that. But you have to be hard-skinned to work in social, specifically a community manager, because you're on the front line. I hate to use that term, but yeah, you're on the front line. You're the first to see everything. You read all the replies because it's your job to reply to fans, and you have to sift through lots of not very nice comments sometimes. And an issue that I had right at the start was that I'm a TSM mega fanboy before I was an employee. So when someone wants to say something about TSM, it's like, yo, not replying, like, you're gonna catch his hands in a minute if you keep slandering him. That's one thing. But yeah, time management, organization, ability to work by yourself, and hard-skinned are probably like 4 qualities that I would look for in someone that's going to come and be a community manager for me. I hope I didn't waffle too much and I was able to answer your question.
I think
Yes,
that
you
was
were.
pretty good. Yeah.
Also,
Thank
there
you.
was a second part to my question, which I didn't ask, but I'll ask now.
Yeah.
Do you think community manager can be its own job? Because a lot of orgs usually have it mixed in with like other jobs just because they have similar qualities, or like you need similar qualities to have them.
We're actually going through some like title stuff and hierarchy stuff in TSM and social at the moment, and there's it's muddy water because there's so many different titles for the exact same job. You know, I would say that social media coordinator, social media specialist, and community manager pretty much all share the exact same job roles, in my opinion. A lot of other people would say very differently, but I feel like they all share so many of the same job responsibilities and what they do in their day to day. In that's specifically talking about esports. Now, I know in video games, community manager is its own role. You know, community manager is supposed to be the voice between the fan or the player and the dev, and they communicate lots of changes, they communicate upcoming things, they get fans excited, they're there to talk to fans. Whereas a community manager in esports is also someone that is there to create engaging posts, create memes, and do a lot of copywriting. So that's where I don't know if like the traditional community manager has transitioned well into esports. But I also think that is an issue of the industry where roles are always combined. Esports organizations don't have a lot of capital to spend all the time. So if they can hire one person who is able to tick two boxes, then it's a win-win situation. You know, if you can have someone working in marketing who's also great with partnerships, and they can work with doing marketing and the partnerships, then it's going to be great. And it's the same for social media. If someone can do the social media specialist stuff and the community management stuff, it's like, yeah, that's my guy, sort of thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't think I actually answered your question properly, but
I get the idea where just like a lot of it just kind of mixed right now. It also depends on, I guess, the org too and how they see it too.
yeah, correct. But in short, I do think a community manager can be its own job, wholeheartedly, definitely. Probably just not right now.
Awesome.
Oof.
Oh, anything else, Carlos? Anything else you want to fire away while we got you on?
Honestly, really impressed considering you had to take on all the hate that TSM gets sometimes. Other than that,
Yeah.
keep going at it. It's
I
okay.
appreciate it, Doug.
Next year will be the year.
Yes, sir. This year.
That's
1 week.
Oh, true. My bad. I'm sorry.
No, I know what you meant, though. You meant
Yeah.
next season, not next year.
Yeah.
I got you. Don't worry.
Also, you guys have my favorite two TSM jerseys on right now too. Those are
Mm.
fire.
Oh, we didn't even coordinate it, Carlos. It just happened to work out. We're both mega
we did
fans.
coordinate the Bjergsen hoodie, though.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Behind us, though. We need the power of the king with us, you know?
Absolutely.
Cheers, Carlos. I appreciate it.
All right.
Cool.
GG.
Yeah, thanks a ton, Carlos. Appreciate it,
GGs.
man. Yeah, it's he called it there, but being number one, you get a lot of that's why you get the hate, right? You can take a little bit of solace knowing that being on the top is the reason people come for you for that.
Yeah,
cool.
It's quite interesting because I was just gonna say I support Manchester United too, the football team, and I've come from everyone hating us from being successful there, and then I went and support TSM. So I mean, you can call me a glory hunter if you want to call me a glory hunter, but yeah, I only support the number one, you know, the best.
Yeah, okay, you came over ready then. As a Manchester United fan, you came over well armed to take on this TSM socials.
Yes, sir.
Cool. We'll keep it on rolling because we got you are getting plenty of these questions flowing into the chat. So next up here we have a text question from Kez. So Kez wants to know how you balance work and life being in a UK time zone for what is predominantly a US social brand. Which again, for a reminder for everyone, it is 8 p.m. on the East Coast. So for Dunk, it's like we're pushing like 1:30 a.m. So
it's gamer hours.
Yeah,
this is gamer hours to remember. All right.
Could not be a more perfect question for what you're doing right now. It could not be a more perfect one.
Well, it's quite interesting. So how do I balance my work, life, and job with living in the UK? I'm working for a North American organization. I'm joking. I do. And it works really well. So being in the UK and being head of a social team for TSM, say, who are continually expanding to new countries, it has helped me a ton over the last year because I have a team in China. So when I wake up, it's a great time to talk to China. Then I have a team in India, and again, they're 5.5 hours behind me. and I can wake up and talk to them just fine. Then I have East Coast, I have Brazil, and then I have West Coast. So like being in the center on a time zone actually has helped me a lot. When it comes to work-life balance, I talked about it earlier. Unfortunately, when you start working in a job, which is your passion and your hobby, you'll never work a day in your life. I would say over the past a year and a half I've worked for TSM, I probably worked 2 days where I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm stressed or whatever it is. But yeah, I generally haven't worked a day in my life since joining TSM. That has its ups and its downs. I can't separate work life. It's just a lifestyle. But just a bit of insight into how I work a day to day is I'll wake up at 6 a.m. This is going to scare some of you. Wake up at 6 a.m.
Hearing me already.
Do my bits. I do my bits in the morning. I play a couple of games. I kind of flip my day around. Like everyone finishes work at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Then they're going to play games in the evening. I'll play my games in the morning. And then throughout my day, UK day, whilst my wife works like a normal UK hours, and whilst North America is asleep, I'll work on my projects. So my projects include things like end of month reports, or my analytics, or if I'm working on a new strategy, or I'm working on copyright for a sponsored post coming up, or a player announcement, a departure. Like I'll have a list of projects I want to complete in the day, and I'll do those, and I'll get them all sorted, and then I'll get my posts ready for the day. And then it gets to about 6 p.m. my time. Stop, have dinner, obviously. And then my evening is basically just ad hoc. I'll work. I'll always have my laptop with me, with my phone with me. I'll be talking to fans on Discord. I'll be replying to them on Twitter. I'll be answering Slack messages and emails. And then I go to bed about 1 a.m. I'm someone who's worked on 5 hours sleep for about a decade now. So I'm just conditioned to do it. Unfortunately, I can't separate because it's a lifestyle, and I don't want to. It's infuriating. Like I should take some time off. I should recharge my batteries, but I'm just like FOMO, you know, like I want to watch that tournament at 3 a.m. Like I want to, yeah. So it's a dangerous game, but I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But I'm not promoting living an unhealthy work-life balance. Everyone should stop. Don't work. Stop right now. Actually, it's like 5 p.m., isn't it? PST, you should all not be working.
Well, so rather than looking at it like as an unhealthy life balance, one thing you've talked about now is 2 answers, right? For Carlos, who's previously on, you talked about how important organization was. You just broke down your schedule for balance. That is organized. You have a life that's very scheduled and organized, and like you said, you take on a ton of responsibilities. So to kind of give some people a little bit more insight into that, because part of why this forum of TSMU is so awesome is they get to ask you a lot of good questions. So I'm gonna throw one out to you as like an asterisk on to Carlos and Kez's question. So how are you staying organized, right? Like you've got a schedule, and you know all this stuff, but like, is there any tools, anything you picked up along the way that made you more organized? Things you'd be like, hey, if you're gonna be on my team, these are tools you can use to be going toward this role.
Yeah,
or hitting that organization.
2 things I swear by: Google Calendars and Asana. So Google Calendars. First off, this is how it works. So in Asana, we have lots of different boards. This will make sense if you've ever used it, but if not, we have a board for Twitter, we have a board for Instagram, TikTok, sponsorship work, announcements, YouTube videos. And I'll get a lot of projects in the early stage. So I'll know about 5 YouTube videos that are going to be the next 5 released. I'll go onto my YouTube board. I'll write out the 5 different YouTube videos that we've got going. I'll then delegate those to my team. So I have 2 people in my team in North America, Griff and Vita. Vita lives in Brazil, but he works on the NA socials. And then I'll delegate out who's posting, who's writing the copy for it. And then we'll move on to other stuff. So I'll go onto my Twitter board, I'll go onto my Instagram board. They'll my team will put up ideas, memes and jokes and engagement posts. I'll look at what they're talking about. I'll give my 2 cents on what I think they should change, if a copy should be different, etc. And then I'll do that for all of my boards. So I'll make sure that every day I'm checking what's going on and where it's going. But everything has to go through Asana. So all original ideas, memes, engagement posts, because they're done so far ahead of time, it has to go through Asana. If it's like off the cuff, have to get it out, trend sort of stuff, nothing, it doesn't really have to go through Asana. You kind of just talk about it in Slack. And then once something gets approved and we figure out a time and work out the best time for engagement that's going to be that day, we'll then put it into Google Calendars. So I can go onto Google Calendar at any point and see what's scheduled, what's being worked on, and when it's going out, and what platform is going out. And the reason why that Google Calendar is so perfect is because you have the ability to share that calendar. So I can share that calendar with management, I can share it with the player managers, and I can share it with the partnerships team. So the partnerships team can then stay super organized because they can come to me and say, hey, we really need to get this, instead of coming to me and saying, hey, we really need to get this piece of sponsored content out, when can we put it out? They just load up the Google Calendar, they check what days are free, on what platforms are free, and then they pick out a time, and then they'll come to me and say, do you think this is a good time to put this out? It's free, I can see it, and then we go from there. So it allows me to stay on top of everything because I just go into Asana and I can see what's live, what's not live, what needs copy, what needs assets for it. I can check what assets I don't have for, like, say, a YouTube video. There's no thumbnail yet. And yeah, so I live and breathe by that one app. And I only found it this year. So before, it was hell.
Now everyone has a chance to jump on now, at least sooner than they would have before, and catch up with you then. Well, perfect. So, Dunk, we've got someone getting ready to jump in voice with us again. So, Bellum, come on in and fire away your questions for Dunk here.
Yeah, hi Dunk. So I have
Hello.
a question. I'm trying to learn how to network better. And something that I've learned that really helps with networking is being able to have something that relates to the other person or the organization, etc. Do you have any tips on learning more about, like, the other person or their achievements, or just tips on how to better network in general through social media?
So, question around networking. So give me some context around what type of people do you want to network with? Are these prominent figures in the scene? Like, are they pros? Are they content creators? Or are they just other, like, behind the scenes staff?
Yeah, I'm interested more in behind the scenes stuff. I think that those people have a lot more skills that I can learn from. Is that so I'm trying not to be rude, but I think that there's a lot less people who are vying for their attention, and I want to learn more about what goes on behind the scenes because I think that's where I'd fit in, or there's more opportunities for me in there.
Okay.
So learning from from those people and their opportunities is what I'm really looking for.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes complete sense. So, question around networking and how best to do it. From my past experience and how I've done it is it's just through Twitter, and it's what I mentioned earlier around creating conversation and trying to. It sounds so weird, but it's just trying to get the follow back on Twitter, and then you can slide into the DMs and have a better conversation with them. I basically will have a list of people that I want to become friends with because I want to learn from. Straight off the bat, the first person I ever wanted to learn was Mateus, or Portillo, who's head of social for Cloud9, because as I was getting into social media, he was the forefront. He drove esports social media into what it is today. And he was a prominent figure, and he's the head of the clique. He's the top dog. So I made it my goal. I was like, I want to become friends with this guy because he is probably valuable from a friendship perspective because I can see how he engages with people on Twitter and how nice of a person he is. But then I also knew that I would be able to learn like a ton from him because he what he did in the past. So I just made it my goal, and the way I did that is just always made sure that I tried to get involved in things. If he was asking questions, I try and create conversation. And it's just simple as just being a nice, and it sounds so weird, but it's just being a nice person to people on social media and hoping they catch your tweet, or sliding into their DMs and just opening up with just, hey, I'm an aspiring social media manager. What you did here, and here. So I linked 4 of their examples. I really liked what you were doing. If you could ever spare some 5 minutes to just explain what went behind this tweet, or like how you came up with this, or what was the process, that would be great. And it's just perseverance. But I find this type of networking really difficult. So I used to work in sales, and that type of networking is really easy because you're always going to events, you're meeting people at trade shows and etc. And it's just so easy to, hey, I'm Duncan, nice to meet you, I do this, you do that, and let's talk. Whereas now we always have a screen in front of us. And perseverance is going to be the only thing that is ever going to break that barrier for everything in esports. But yeah, I would just, my tips are just to be nice, friendly, slide into their DMs if it's open, and always open with a question. Always, never ever. My number one tip. I won't purposely not answer your question, but if you say, hey, Dunk, can I ask a question? That requires me then to go back and say, hey, yeah, sure, go ahead, ask me the question. And then you to come back and ask me the question. And then I have to go back and answer the question. For someone that I'm talking to 50 million people a day, I want to answer questions as much as I possibly can. So if you just was like, hey, Dunk, nice to meet you. I'm Belle. I want to know this, this, and this. I'll be like, right, I'll get to that because you've come to me with meat to the bone, and I will get to it. So yeah, time is money.
So sometimes I only feel like I have a bone to offer, like especially as a student where I'm not very experienced. I am struggling to look for work, and so it seems like a lot of the interactions I've seen from other students who are trying to connect with professionals, they're like, hey, do you have any jobs? Can I connect with you? What does that look like? As a student, how do I not do that? How do I come up to someone and say, hey, I want to just get to know you better, or can I just talk to you more as a friend and learn from your experience so that it would help me find work in the future, but not putting myself out there as I need work, hire me, please.
And that's it's like the meaning of life. It's a question that is just so hard to answer because how do you offer someone something you don't have? And I guess that just comes down to the personality of the person. You can read quite a lot from a person on Twitter, if they're really open to having conversations with people. But I genuinely want, I knew I was going to get questions where I don't have any advice for it other than the really generic stuff of just, I'm going to hate the word by the end of the stream, is perseverance. I don't know, other than just shooting your shot and trying to get an answer. And I would appreciate if someone was really upfront with me. If they DM'd me and was just like, hey, I want to know this. I don't know if I can offer anything else, but you can butter people up. You can play to their egos. You can play to their, you can compliment them. That's when I said earlier where, highlight, I really like this piece you did, this, you're fantastic at your job. I want to be you. What steps did you take? Is there anything you can teach me?
So other than complimenting your beard, what would you like people to compliment you on?
My British accent. That's my number one. That's what they always say. It's like, I like your accent, I like your beard. But generally, if you ever have any questions, more questions, my Twitter and my Discord DMs have forever been open. You can always ask me outside of this stream. Just straight out be like, Dunk, I don't want to be friends with you, but I want to learn. Boom, boom, boom. I like your accent. Done.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to answer. And I'll be sure to hit you up with more compliments.
But I hope I answered part of your questions anyway. If I couldn't get the bit at the end.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hey,
You're welcome.
Bella, one more piece too. I don't know if you've already jumped or not, but one other piece. I had also not far behind you. I'm only like 2.5 years removed from school now. The grind it's tough. I feel you. One of the pieces of advice I got from managers, and Dunk, feel free to agree or disagree or qualify, but the number one step is if you're a likable person that understands your value, right? Like something you're bringing to someone, they can always teach you things you don't know, but it's really hard to find someone who's a really good character fit, who they can seamlessly work into their team, who won't be a disruption to operations. That is one of the easiest things that I think you can take a lot of control of, and making sure you're likable and understanding what value you're bringing. You don't have the experience, and that's understandable, but you have value and you have things that they're probably looking for. And if you have a really good understanding of that, that's going to make that first question you're firing away, or that first piece of dialogue you have with the person you're trying to network with, that much easier.
Yeah, hard agree. I have nothing more to add to that. Just a hard agree. Upvote. Like.
Appreciate it. Well, Bell, thanks. I think you did drop, but thanks so much for calling in with your question, and for the dialogue. It was awesome. Before we jump into the next few questions, Dunk, I'm going to give everyone a quick reminder that if you do want to fire away some questions to this awesome British accent over to my other side, join the TSMU Discord. So that is discord.gg /TSMU. Drop on in there. You will see the Ask Stream Questions Here channel to get ready to drop your questions to Dunk, or join us on Voice and hang out for a little bit. And if you are not following TSMU on all social platforms, do make sure you're doing that. I cannot express to you how amazingly valuable this resource is that TSM is putting out in front of you. Like, getting the chance to ask these professionals what they do and understand what it takes to make an esports organization work outside of phenomenal players and massive victories. These guys bring value to the organization and allow it to run day in and day out. So do make sure you're taking advantage of that. And with that, we'll jump on into the next question. So we do have another text question we can ask you. Sorry, Dunk got a little hung up there. We do have another question from Tax Evasion. So Tax Evasion asked, with all the different teams and players you have to keep track of, what are your tips on staying organized? We touched on this, I think, a little bit. So if you want to just kind of reiterate some of those stuff for Tax Evasion.
Yeah, for teams like Cloud9, Team Liquid, TSM, where you have an esport in every single game, genuinely the hardest part about the job. It's like, you really want to post about 5 players all the time, because you know that they are going to bring you in engagement, and at the end of the day, engagement is everything. But it is your job as a social media manager to turn TSM fans, or fans of whatever brand it is, onto other teams and other players. So like 75%, I don't actually know what the exact figure is, but the majority of TSM fans have come from League of Legends and support our League of Legends team. It's my job and my team's job to branch you out and make you become a TSM fan and not a Bjergsen fan and a Speaker fan. You know, I want you to go and watch this. I want you to go and watch Tanner Slays. So it's my job to create a content calendar which is able to showcase more than just like our competitive players, and open more doors and more windows to other areas of TSM. And staying organized on that is almost impossible. And the only reason why it is possible is for player managers. So we have 5 player managers who look after 75 players, and it's their job to keep them organized, to keep us organized. So we have an internal calendar where they'll update weekly or ahead of time when we have events. And that allows us to start planning campaigns around those events. So for instance, I don't know if you all saw, but recently we ran our first S-tier tournament campaign around 6 Invitational. And it's up to, you know, the player managers to get us dates and when that's happening, so we can plan well ahead of time with everything coming up. And it's also up to them to, you probably heard this if you listened to the Q&A with Austin Haggart, and if you didn't, you can go onto the TSM University's YouTube channel to watch that VOD. But he was a player manager, and he would have gone in depth about how it's his job to stay on top of players' movements, what they're doing, what events they're getting involved in, and then they give us that ahead of time. And then we cherry pick that information, and then we build a content calendar for the next month coming up. So that's how we stay organized. It's mainly through the player managers.
There we go. And shout out, man. You even pulled in the other episode I hosted. I appreciate that. So I want to jump back though. So I want to hold your feet to the fire on kind of the first thing you said there. And you talked about how part of what you have to do as a social media manager is you don't just want people to fall on the backs of one or two players. You want them to become TSM fans, right? I think that's something probably a lot of people overlook about how a critical component of your job. But just recently, we had the king himself step down, and I don't think a lot of people, maybe you did, but I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. So what kind of challenge did that introduce for you? Was it easy because of the amount of work you had kind of teed up and driving into the TSM brand as opposed to just being Bjergsen? How has that been? How's that kind of journey been for you? Because that took everyone by surprise, right?
Yeah, that moment will live with me forever. I was down on my parents, down in the bottom of England, and I just got a call from Lena to let me know. There was like 5 of us that knew at the time, and holding that information was just like, so it completely left field. So I knew nothing about it until very, very close to the announcement. And to be honest, I wasn't dreading it like I've dreaded other player departures, because I knew he was staying within TSM. So it's a really hard question to answer because he's still TSM Bjergsen. He's still in the same amount of TSM Legends as he was in all of the other years. He streams less now, and makes a lot less content. But I thought that we would see kind of a lot of fans just leave because they just want to watch Bjergsen. But we were able to actually keep it's really weird. Like once you're in TSM as a fan, you're stuck for life. You kind of just can't rid yourself of TSM. It's in your DNA. So yeah, we didn't see any, like from a social perspective, we didn't see any fan drop off. We didn't see any like less engagement around Bjergsen pieces. Like we went through a period of mourning. We all did. We all cried.
Some of us still are.
Yeah. But then we were able to create new, funnier content around a coach. You know, we have a person of interest as a coach, and no one had seen him in a suit and like being up on stage and stuff. So we were able to create some fun content, and then obviously we had the whole transition of who on earth was going to be the third mid laner for TSM in the 11 years of the organization being around. And it's like, you know, we got to create a bit of excitement around that until Jacob Wolf decided to leak everything about Power of Evil. So yeah, it was weird, but I wasn't worried because he's TSM through and through, so he would stay and the fans would stay for him to watch him succeed as a coach. So yeah.
I can't understate how awesome it is that you said you did not see a drop off of engagement. So like, I think there's probably a lot of fan perception. It's like Bjergsen and TSM, like they're synonymous, right? Like they're one or the other, and he isn't gone, but not being on the main roster is a big thing. So huge testament to you, the team that you work with, the org you work for, that you're able to drive so much value and focus on your brand that even with losing such an iconic figure, you're able to still drive success, brand awareness, and brand loyalty as well. So huge testament to you. So with that, love, we'll keep it rolling. You've got these pouring in dunks. So we have another question from Tax Evasion. It's following up with another one. So Tax Evasion asked for the second question. When TSM gets a new player, how do you go about understanding them and their personality? And how do you apply what you understand to the greater TSM social media universe?
Damn, what a good question.
That one's coming in hot. That was a great one, Tax Evasion.
Can you say it again just so I can break it down?
Yeah, let's break it into chunks then. So for the first chunk, they asked, when TSM gets a new player, how do you go about understanding them and their personality?
Okay, so I hear quite ahead of time who we're talking to, mainly because I'm a curious cat. So I will bug our head of talent all the time, Mike Scales, to tell me who we're like talking to and stuff. And I will just spend a lot of time watching their Twitch streams. So I spent an entire day today watching someone that might be coming in the future. And I will just understand like what their community's like. I'll watch their Twitch chat. You know, everyone knows what like XQC's Twitch chat is like compared to, say, if Bjergsen was to stream, what his Twitch chat's like. So you kind of understand what type of community that person has, and then you're able to like build like a proper personality for that player. I'll then do like a lot of research into articles around them if they've done interviews in the past. Interviews are a really great way of actually understanding what type of person they are, because you either get someone like Mark who is unbelievable at interviews, like unbelievable, and then you get someone else who does an interview, who's like really quiet, they're really shy. They just say like, you know, what does it mean to win this world championship? And they're like, yeah, really good. Yeah. And you can kind of really understand what type of person is through an interview because they're put under pressure. And that's the kind of way that I'll start to understand like their personality and how they want to work with us on socials. And a prime example of that is Matt Waddell. He personifies charisma, and watching his interviews, his Twitch stream, we know how far we can push it on social media with him. We know the type of stuff that we can put out, and we know that he'll engage all the time, and he laps it up. Whereas there'll be other people which don't really care too much about social media, and we know, kind of like how to work with them. But in terms of new talent, I'll watch interviews, I'll read articles, and I'll watch hours of their Twitch stream.
Okay, so it takes a lot of time, and also thanks for calling out my boy Wardell.
Well, now there you
It's
go.
a custom made one right there.
Yeah.
So you guys can DM me for that one. But
I love that.
We'll take the second piece now to tax evasions questions. So the first one was, and I think you kind of touched on it. So the first one was understanding, hey, how do you get to know these people? Now, how do you tailor your strategy around that? How are you pivoting? What shifts do you make based on the players and the differences in their personalities?
So it's kind of what I just touched on with Waddell. I could, for someone like him, that we're able to understand that his personality is all about having fun, whether it's laughing at himself or like self-deprecated. I can never say that word. Humor. So we can understand how far we can push it and how much we can meme a situation. And it's kind of like the whole Valorant team, us never winning a pistol never winning a pistol round. I knew all 5 of those guys were sound as a pound, they're hard skinned, and I could push it really far. Whereas there's other teams where if they didn't perform so well, like I know in our strategy to not push it and not add more fuel to the fire and not give fans a platform to drive the hammer home even harder. So yeah, we build it into our strategy. We have not a list, but we have like an understanding of who we can have a lot of fun with and poke a lot of fun with and create content with. And then we have another like list of people that we know that we can just kind of, with them, it's all about just gameplay highlights, showcasing their like supreme talent. So yeah, like there is a clear strategy on how far we can push things for engagement and impressions. I think is hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, I think you knocked that one home. So we are coming up close here on the hour, Dunk. So we are going to be finishing up on the questions here. So we have a few more to kind of knock them out. And just a reminder to everyone again, these events are happening weekly and constantly. So if it's not a Q&A, there's some game nights, and we had a former person calling. Bell Bellum asking about networking. TSMU is such a great place to start, a good chance to connect with all these fantastic people. So do remember to join the Discord and get involved in the community. And with that plug, let's go ahead and jump on into the next question. So Riku asks, what are the major tasks and responsibility of social media coordinators in the esports space? And do you think it's important for aspiring coordinators to understand graphic design? So I think you've kind of hit on the first one a few times. So if you want to go a little lighter on that one and then jump on the second one. So the first one being, what are the major tasks and responsibilities for your job?
Okay. So I don't, like I said, I don't want to delve too deep into the first part of it, but the tasks and responsibilities for like a social media coordinator are, so a social media manager will build a strategy. It will say in the strategy what to do, what posts we do, when to do them, how we do them, why we do them. So social media manager will say, this is everything that we do. Social media coordinator will take that and will apply it. So they'll be like, right, this person says we post an engagement post on Twitter at 10 a.m. on a Friday because that's when we get great engagement. So then the social media coordinator will look at the content calendar. If there's a big League of Legends game that day, then they might create an engagement post around League or anything else that's going on at the time. So it's a social media coordinator's job to create posts, come up with ideas, ideation, and post, basically. And then the second part of that was, what was the second part of the question?
How important do you think it is for aspiring social media coordinators to understand graphic design?
Cool. There is a meme that goes around that it's like social media people should be video editors, graphics designers, social media managers, and there's another one, but I can't remember what the other profession is. And it rings true. It's not a myth. It's, if you can be good at graphics design and you can be good at video editing, then like shebang, you're already doing very well for yourself, because 9 times out of 10, if I come up with a content idea, so I'm gonna self-plug here. So today we released a video. It was our LCS schedule, but instead of doing the boring, normal LCS schedule like most teams do, we decided to use anime fight scenes to describe the matchup for the first 9 games. And content like that you come up with, it was so small and insignificant and such an easy job. I didn't want to go to my content team to do all of our unbelievable feature film documentaries on youtube.com/TSM, that I didn't want to bug them with it. So I made it myself. And to have that ability to make graphics, edit memes, create video content, it's always going to be a plus, a huge plus, like massive. You could have no experience in social media, but you could be a whiz with the Adobe Creative Suite, Photoshop, Illustrator, and like Premiere Pro, for instance. And that would already set you off on a really strong start. So I often get the question like, what should I be doing whilst I'm like trying to get a job, or like I'm in college, I'm in school at the moment, I want to get to social media in the end goal, like what should I be doing in the meantime? And my first piece of advice is just go and do a beginner's course on Photoshop. So many YouTube videos on how to do a beginner's course on Photoshop, and then just learn basic cutting and slicing for video editing, and do that whilst you're in school. You're like just spending a bit of time in your spare time after you've done all your assignments, and start working on some of those, because those skills will go with you wherever you go. It's not just applied to esports or video games, it can be applied to every single industry. And hey, you might find out that you're actually a video editing god. Who knows?
So it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, for what you'd see for like graphic design, video editing, all the other things that are valuable assets, they are not required skills, but they are definite. They're pluses, and they bring a lot of value to the table.
Yeah, I'll never hire I'll never not hire someone because they have no experience with Adobe Creative Suite, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
it just
makes perfect sense.
not at all. But it is obviously a great asset to have.
Okay. Awesome. Well, and with that, so Riku, thanks a ton for the question. Tax evasion is back for round 3. So tax evasion
go, tax evasion.
can't get enough of you tonight, Dunk.
Yes, sir.
So they're coming in round 3. Tax evasion says an essential part of your job is keeping up with pop culture trends. Actually, I love this question because I'm dying to know as well. So while part of your job is keeping up with what's going on in pop culture, do you actively devote time to doing research and keeping up with what's going on, or do you just view them as it's just part of your job and your non-work life and it's easy for you?
Yeah, this was the one thing that I was really scared about when working in social media, because I was like, how do I keep up like with the meta on everything? Like there is a meta for everything. Like you look at Twitch, the meta is like, we won't talk about that meta, but we'll talk about like it was like an Among Us meta, then it was a Fall Guys meta, then it was now it is GTA RP meta, and every single platform and everything in life just has a meta. And I was really worried that I was not going to be able to keep up with it, and understand and be the forefront and be the leading in pop culture. But I just found that I was consuming more of it, and 95% of it comes from Reddit. And Reddit is such an easy platform to consume a lot of content in a very little amount of time. So I made it at the start when I joined initially as a community manager, was that I would just sit on Reddit for an hour a day. I would have my 15 subreddits that I would skim the top hot posts for. And I just integrated it into my job to the point where I enjoy Reddit as Dunk, not TSM Dunk, just Dunk. And if I'm sat on the sofa, just chilling, I'll skim through Reddit and I will see what's going on. You'll see that all memes, every single meme template that you ever have seen on Twitter comes from Reddit. And if you can get to the source from Reddit, you can then become the trendsetter on Twitter. And one of the best brands at doing that is G2 Esports. And it sucks because they're an EU org and they get everything first. So they'll wake up, they'll check Reddit, and you've got the overnight Americans that post on Reddit overnight. EU will wake up, they'll see the hot posts, they'll get on the meme templates first. And then because they're obviously, their best times for engagement are going to be during EU hours because they are an EU org, they'll post it first. I see this template and I'm like, I really want to use it. Can't wait to get there first. And I'm like, right, my guys ain't going to be waking up till 9 a.m. PST. Like we're like 10 hours away from this. Like TSM fans, it's like based on West Coast. So yeah, that's just an example of how people use it. But pop culture is so important, and it will always be important because Gen Z is the future and they live for pop culture and they will drive everything. So you have to become Gen Z. Yeah, I think I tried to get that question.
Yeah, so I think so. If it's not something you if it's not something you do in your off time, it is definitely something you would have to actively commit time to be involved in to find success in your role. If I'm understanding correct. Absolutely.
Correct, yeah.
Tax evasion, thanks a ton for the third one. Dunk, we have flown through this hour. We're closing out with one final question here. And it is a great one. It is such a great one to end on. So Ken asks, now that you've developed the experience in the esports industry, do you think it would be easy to transition into another industry, such as like tech or fashion? And well, let's start with that. We'll start with that and then hit with the second part of that question. So with your esports experience, do you think it'd be easy for you to pivot to a different industry?
I always think about this because I always think about like what's life after TSM, and I mean there's no afterlife, TSM forever. But I always think about like what's afterlife, and I'm like, I did get worried to start with because I was like, I've started at the number one esports org, and I was like, I don't have any experience from previous jobs, so it's like everything I'm learning is learning on the job. And I was like, would I be able to apply that to another industry? And I looked at lots of other industries, and I think any industry that shares a lot of similarities with esports, I think it would be really, really easy to transition it all across. So tech, business, sports, I think all share so many of the same similarities, especially sports. So one industry in particular, which is Formula One. Formula One is such a old person sport. Sorry. It's coming now into new age, but it used to be such an old person sport. And like they're trying to go after Gen Zs, right? They're trying to go after millennials, these guys that are the impressionable ones. And being able to apply lots of stuff I've learned from the esports industry, memes and engagement posts, being able to apply that into an industry where you could be the drive. I referenced it earlier, C9. They were the first people to go with self-deprecating humor and bringing other orgs down and firing shots. They were one of the first to do it straight out. And they led that in that industry, and it was game changing. And now everyone wants to be C9 and G2. And that could be the same for like the Formula One industry. But yeah, I do feel like I could transfer, and anyone else could transfer to another industry that have the same similarities and traditions that esports does.
Oh, and now let's jump right in because I think you've closed out perfectly into the tail end of Ken's question. So now it seems like you think there are plenty of transferable skills, right? So there's plenty of ways you could transfer into other industries. Mm-hmm. If you were talking to someone who was looking to do that, someone who was looking to pivot, what are the tips you'd give them?
That is hard because notoriously people don't like change, and that's often change is good, right? So my dissertation or thesis or whatever you guys want to call it was on change and how people don't like it. And it's extremely hard. But are there any tips you'd give to someone that... It's a really hard question. I'm really stumped, actually. Can you position it one more time? Can you read out the question again?
Yeah, absolutely. So with knowing that knowing your skills are transferable, right? Like I didn't think, like, even as a person knowing you, there's zero doubt in my mind that if you wanted to pivot, right, from esports as your primary entry to something else, I have zero doubt you'd be able to do that. So if you were giving someone that advice, if you had to give anyone any kind of advice for who might be doing that pivot, what's the advice you might give them? Maybe they're doubting their ability to transfer their skills in another industry. What kind of feedback would you give them?
It's gonna be that word again, that P word, perseverance. You're gonna want to persevere. You're gonna want to try to break barriers instantly with so like I'll take an example. It's probably not going to be great, but there's one esports organization, a esports organization, which was really straight tooth. They didn't want to do memes. They didn't want to do anything other than just standard live coverage. And someone came from an organization to that organization and had to bring over what they knew before into this new org. And it just took time, and it just took perseverance, and it took evidence to show them that, hey, like, this is what we should be doing. This is worked in the past. Here's 10 examples of why it worked and how it worked and how it's going to work again then in this new organization. And it would be the same for any industry moving forward. I would take a clear strategy with me ahead of time on what I want to achieve and how I'm going to go about it, and then the type of posts and post examples that I would do, and show real life examples of what you think could be changed, and then how it could look and how it could be better. So like my example of how I think Formula One needs to stop being so white collar, I think is the term, where it's all really prim and proper, and they need to loosen their top button and have a bit more fun on social media, because there's a sick sport. They travel to 10, 15 different countries every single year. And I would take a clear strategy with me of things that have worked in the past and why, and apply it to the industry that you want to get into. I don't know if I've answered the question, but I've tried my best.
I think you have. And to kind of tack on another summary for you there, Ken, one thing Dunk has consistently hit on through almost every one of his answers, he has a very clear understanding of the value he's bringing TSM. He understands the gap he fills. He understands what he brings to the table as an individual, and because he knows that value, there's zero doubt he can take that exact understanding and take it with him anywhere. Right? He understands what he's bringing to the table, and he has some confidence in that. And so, anytime you're looking to make a pivot, one, it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. Making sure you have that confidence, that understanding of the value, that's that first step, right? The rest will start to kind of come, and there'll be hurdles along the way. But every answer, if you go back and watch the VOD, Dunk has a very firm understanding of the value he's bringing to TSM and how he's going to continue to bring value to their brand and that company.
Yeah, very nice of you to say. I appreciate it. I'm glad that there was able to be some consistencies throughout, because it's like I was really worried I was going to say one thing, and then like 20 minutes later I was going to contradict myself and say something completely different. So I'm really glad that there was some consistencies in some of these answers anyway.
Absolutely is. Hopefully everyone else finds a ton of value in it. But Dunk, we are closing out. We cleared out the questions, cleared out the queue. It's been a phenomenal hour hanging out with you. Need to do it more. Anything else you want to roll out for the people at TSMU?
Yeah. So I get the question a lot about how to get into esports and how to get into social media, like where you should start. And I'm going to be rolling out some internships in my social media team. So the first one is just going to be one position for the summer period. And still need to work out timings and dates that things are going to start from, but it'll be a paid opportunity, with obviously options to stay on after if you're good. Then you hit those banging memes. But yeah, best thing to do is obviously stay in the TSMU Discord and watch out for my ping in a few weeks with the details. It's just going to be a simple form. I'm not after anything. You don't have to have any experience. You can be any level of life. But yeah, I'm just going to be hunting for an intern. And then obviously next year, we'll run more interns throughout the summer. And some of you who don't know how I got into this job, the luck met opportunity, and I was just a fan who made a fan account, and here I am now. And I want to try my best to give people a foot into esports, because I know how bloody difficult it is. So yeah, stay tuned. Make sure you stay in the TSMU Discord for more details.
That is how you close out a show right there with an announcement like
sir.
that. That is how you close one out. Well, Dunk, thanks so much for spending the hour with me. Thanks a ton for staying up so late, man. You have absolutely killed it. No doubt, there's plenty for people to be taking away from this. So first, obviously, thanks to you. Thanks to everyone for attending and calling in with those questions. Everyone, just so you know, we do have another special guest coming on June 2nd. We have Damien, who is the managing director at Icon, who's going to be on this show again June 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Another fantastic opportunity to get to know someone else who essentially brings TSM off the ground on the back end, right? So make sure you are following on TSMU on Twitter, as TSM University on Twitter, and you are in the Discord, discord.gg/TSMU, so you can be involved with all of the community events, such as the game nights, and knowing when exactly this show goes live, so you never miss out on an opportunity to connect in a new way. With that, I hope everyone has a great night. Dunk, I hope you managed to creep in some sleep.
I'm going to go play some Apex Legends now.
Let's
I appreciate
go.
everyone coming around and asking questions, and thanks again for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks a ton, Dunk.
See ya.